Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us for this section of really just a precursor or a little bit of an insight to what you might learn if you choose to join us for the certification session. So this session we're really calling Stop Managing Behavior and Stop Understanding It. And it is this sneak peek into what's possible and why we do what we do at RightPath. So when someone behaves in a certain way, there's many times when we're trying to understand why is that behavior? Is there something about that? Is this personal? Is this personality? And the truth is that people behave in many different ways, but behavior can be understood. A little bit about what we call lens theory. So you have a want and a desire, and you want to elevate your leaders and maximize your talent. And we at RightPath, we know exactly how to do that. And one of the statements that we make is we eliminate friction. We eliminate it in people, we eliminate it in teams, and we eliminate it in organization. You see, we know where friction starts, where it begins, where it fixes. Let me back up and say that one again. We know where friction exists. We know all the different points. We know the root cause. We know where it starts, and we know what to do about it. We know how to fix that particular piece. So here's what we've learned over the years. Our expertise is that first point of friction, the first point of organizational failure is around hiring. We know that 46% of employees fail or fail to achieve the reason why they were hired within the first 18 months. So we need to really start and have the best hiring method, or at least to give them the best chance as possible. Then, if we have an ineffective onboarding, now we're really leaving them. They struggle because they may or may not fit the position. We leave them to chance because we really don't have this intentional, effective 4, 6, 8-week onboarding plan. And in the middle of that, not onboarding them, not really giving them the sufficient feedback, they can become, and many do, become almost toxic team members. Now, if you survive all of that and you are the best on the team, generally we're going to promote you into management with one slight deficiency, one slight problem. 60% of first-time supervisors get promoted into supervisory without ever experiencing any training. And so when we start to look at ineffective hiring, ineffective onboarding, ineffective feedback, and ineffective leadership, this is really where friction exists and really where friction thrives in many organizations. That leads to that last one of emotional intelligence struggles. So as we've known this, and as really we've done the research and 25 years of doing this in live across organizations all over the planet, our heart is to say now, how do we help organizations fix it? How do we help organizations eliminate it? And how can we help you become certified in what we do so you can be an internal champion within your organization? Or if you already have a coaching practice, to really elevate your coaching to the next level with world-class tools and resources, partnering with us at RightPath. So many people utilize our resources and our tools in selection and hiring, onboarding, teaming and leadership, emotional intelligence. These are some of the key components. And we really are passionate about doing this, but doing this with data. So in our survey, once people get certified, we ask them, what are you immediately wanting to do with this information? What are you immediately wanting to go back and deploy it in? And the survey came back that 50% of organizations are struggling with their leadership, and they immediately want to come back and change some of these particular pieces. They're challenged in engagement, and many times they're operating in crisis mode with high turnover and dealing with a scale. So a lot of the stress around this, and we said ultimately, well, what do you want to do with this? And it was almost 90% that immediately said, we need to come back and we need to try to work on elevating or fixing our leaders first. And that to us is how we start that process, whether it's elevating your leadership or helping you in that hiring phase. So let me take myself off of this for just a second. Have you ever led someone and they felt defensive, or maybe you interacted with them and it felt a little bit controlling, or they were disengaged? Maybe you've been around somebody that felt a little bit overly emotional maybe resistant to some of the feedback, or they felt almost impossible to motivate. And when we start to look at what happens past that, that behavior is usually shaped by something underneath. And the four components of that are your natural wiring, past experiences, maybe priorities and values are different between us and them, and also the pressure. You know, there's many times in today's world, our ecosystem, that everybody feels so pressured that how are they going to operate, and how are they going to operate under pressure is one of those key pieces. So we see the surface, but really what is in our best interest is to try to understand the subsurface. Again, surface behavior, what they did in the meeting, how that 360 results, we do 360 results, how they read, what HR sees in the engagement surveys and the scores that just dropped. We see surface. But you can't lead what you don't know. So if you can manage the behavior, but what we're recommending really is you get subsurface, and we look at that behavioral wiring. You know what they did, but do you know why they did it? You know, will that wiring produce that same behavior again? Is this repetitive? And if it's repetitive, again, is this just an oppositional person, or is there a difference in wiring maybe between us and them, or between two team members, that might be the root cause of some of this? Once we understand that, then how will we coach them, our leadership style, and our tendency in these behavioral modalities, and how do we connect better with them? So in the certification training, we really spend this time and we go, let's go subsurface, and let me help you become an expert in that subsurface. And you come back to your organization, champion that knowledge, and ultimately help elevate, reduce the friction, help elevate leaders at every level. So what the leader sees, this is called lens theory. What the leader sees is someone is controlling, or maybe someone is scattered, or maybe someone's a little bit slow and we need to try to have them, get some sort of an enhanced sense of urgency, or maybe they feel a little bit too harmonious, a little bit too passive. Well, so what actually may be happening subsurface, so they just saw surface, what actually may be happening subsurface is a little bit more like this. From controlling, maybe they're just prioritizing results and they have that urgency, and so it feels controlling, but that's not what they intend to do. If they're scattered, maybe it's about processing these ideas and possibilities so quickly that there are too many things to chase at once, and maybe that shows up or comes across as being scattered. If they're slow, maybe they aren't slow, maybe they're protecting accuracy and methodology and stability, and so they're anchored in, how can we do this? How can we do this right with the best practices? And again, the perception is, but the reality is something completely different. And maybe if they have that passivity, if they're coming across a little bit more passive in this, maybe they're not. Maybe they're just trying to preserve harmony and relational safety within the organization. So it's our goal during these 3 days of certification training to help you get past the surface, past what we experience, into the behavioral wiring that's the root of that, and ultimately help you bring this information back to your organization. The truth is this: we naturally communicate and connect best with people that are wired like us. That's just sort of a natural piece. Like kind generally connects in a best way. But the challenge about leadership is we're not just going to be leading people like us. Generally speaking, if we're in our particular quadrant, maybe there's 75% of humanity that's not going to be exactly like us or similar to us. And we're going to need to learn to connect. And learning to connect, that's going to elevate our leadership. So we don't want to overlook it. We need to learn our existing. And as a practitioner, you'll learn how to really understand yourself. Then you'll learn those pinch points and the connection points into others around the different profile types. Again, different people, we operate in different ways. This comes into just understanding human behavior and understanding lens theory, Gestalt theory, if you will. Different people have different needs that they lead different, we lead differently, but ultimately employees need something different. Some are going to need clarity. Some are going to need more collaboration. Some are going to need more time to process. Some need more directness. So if you tend to be diplomatic like me, or maybe you're a little bit high level like I am, they're looking for directness and specificity, and that can be a struggle if someone is too high level or too diplomatic, or sort of beats around the bush, if you will, on these components. And some need relational trust before transactional trust. Some are results oriented, some are relationship oriented. So we as leaders and as HRBP, if you're an HRBP within the organization, we've got to be able to balance both approaches and help both sides meet in the middle. So on my particular profile, what you'll see on these profile types, and let me just kind of show you on this, this particular part. Let me see if I can get my mouse to work on this. So we have a path 4, and the path 4 up top, many of you that have utilized our assessment for years, you understand the path 4, and this is where we get your blended profile type. So I come in as a director on the blended profile. But what we'll teach you really as you're getting certified is there's a deeper awareness in the path 6. So we understand from a high level, almost like what we've talked about for an extended period of time as an X-ray, how you're naturally going to show up. And then we teach you how to go deeper into reading the path 6. So on mine, my 69 on directing, my intensity on directing really pulls back to mid-level on the dominant. And there's factors that are in contribution to that or in alliance with that, that ultimately something like adventure is going to skew or essentially change the difference between the 4 and the path 6. And over the years and over the research project that we have launched, here's one of the things that we have found, that after over 200,000 behavioral profiles researched, 65% of people reveal deeper wiring in their path 6. So we look at the surface of the path 4, but one of the geniuses and what we really try to make sure that you are fully trained in is the differentiator. The right path difference is in the path 6 and in the 16 subfactors or 16 micro behaviors. So from the path 4, 65% of people are going to reveal a deeper wiring in their path 6 and their 16 than they do in their path 4 alone. And over 50% carry 2 or more intensities that their path 4 profile would not reveal. You would miss it if you just, if you only read the path 4, or if you weren't adept at reading the 6 and the 16. And we want to make sure that it is sufficiently sophisticated. We want to make sure that it has the depth to really add value, but we do everything that we can to keep it as simple and straightforward as possible as we teach you. And we have plenty of practice sessions to where we will make sure that you leave adept and equipped to be able to add value to your particular organization. Why this matters is when we have aligned our 360s with the leadership behavior, here's some of the things that we've found. There's a connection, there's a prediction, and not unsurprisingly, right? If you are a driver, director, strategic thinker, if you're a high drive profile, then people are going to experience you as much more of a results-oriented leader. And if you're more encouraging, sympathetic, harmonious, you're going to be seen as much more of a relationship or people-oriented leader. That's no blinding flash of the obvious, if you will. But when we look at the reports and we start to get down into the details, really what we're doing is we're looking for, are there some things that we can do to develop leaders in advance to make them as effective as possible? And what's the linearity? How are they connected? And so when we look at something like this, where you're looking at someone's path 4 and path 6, and then we also look at their LQ360, what we can do is we can say, you know, some of your genius traits are going to be these. Some of your best superpowers are going to be, you know, if you're adventurous, I do expect you to show up as courageous, or at least you're going to be willing to take some risks. If you're action-oriented, you're probably going to be proactive. So again, we understand the behavior, or we see the behavior, let me say it that way, but do we understand the wiring? Again, in these 3 days, we're going to drill deep so that you understand this particular behavior. This is going to show up this way, but here's the root cause. And so the greater the adaptation, the greater the learning, the greater your ability to add value to your organization. The data, again, 21,000 leaders that we have surveyed through 360s and done the coaching, and over 2,100 we studied in this test retest. Here's the number one thing that we found that direct reports are saying most often about leaders, that they are not recognizing when people around them are discouraged. Now, what I've also seen is there's kind of this impossible equation. Leaders above you are expecting us to drive results. The peers are saying, can you help me, and can your department get its act together so that we can produce results better and easier? But your direct reports are looking for something different. They're looking for, will you connect with me emotionally? Will you set me up for success? Do you recognize my strengths? Do you motivate and encourage me? Can I get to you to where you will listen and open up to my ideas? So it's much more relational and support need-based from the direct reports, but above us, the pressure down on us is we need to produce results. So in this particular piece, we're fully aware that mid-level leadership really feels the friction, feels the pain, feels the stress of this. And through our coaching programs and through our additional offerings, we help these mid-level leaders succeed. Again, number one, do you recognize when people are discouraged? If you're a relationship-oriented profile, this is going to be easier than if you're much more of a drive-oriented or prescriptive type profile. So on the negative side, again, if you are so logical and detached, I'm not surprised that this is that number one. If you're more assertive, maybe assertive and blunt and verbal and challenging, you're probably going to show up, and the accusation is going to be that you don't listen well. Generally speaking, that's because you are asserting and trying to communicate and get your point across. So all these different components, as we start to look at the wiring, for those of us that are practitioners, those that come to certification, I really want to equip and empower you to the point where you can, for lack of a better term, you can read the tea leaves and you can understand the substrate of that behavior, and then you can say, okay, I get it. Now I know where to come back and add the most value to the leaders in the organization, to those direct reports that are trying to serve those leaders, and again, the entire ecosystem within your organization. Again, 2,100 coaching clients that were profiled in a test and retest. So generally what we'll do is we will assess them through the 360 and the behavioral profile, the Path 4, Path 6. We'll go through a coaching program. They will retest after a period of time to see if that behavior moved. In 2,100 coaching clients across 20 years, 77% of leaders improved. And so the more you know, the more you're in deep with, again, not only just the practitioner certification, but the coaching certification. These are areas where we've got the receipts, we've got the data to say these are movable, they're malleable, and 77% of leaders actually improve through this process. When leaders recognize patterns, and this is what the entire data set and the coaching can come into play, leadership becomes less reactive, much more proactive. Teams becomes less exhaustive because, again, there's this drain that happens, this emotional drain that happens when we're trying to figure out how to get along with each other from a relational standpoint, from a personality or wiring standpoint. So teams become less exhausting. We set them up for success, put the right people in the right seats, led by the right fully developed leaders. And again, it just makes life completely better for everybody on that component. Conversations are more easily, they flow more easily, and they're more productive. And people feel understood far more than they just feel managed. And I say it often, but nobody wakes up in the morning and just says, man, I hope I get managed today. We want to be led. We want to be set up for success. We want to be able and capable, enabled, if you will, to be able to be the greatest contributors that we can be. And this is some of the components and the outflows we look at from our certification. How can we help you do that? So the RightPath difference that we believe that we set apart is this. We have the Path 4 and the Path 6 The behavioral wiring, again, the 4 being much more of an X-ray, the 6 being much more of an MRI going deep. And again, over 2/3, 64.5% of people will be something different. Well, they'll give us deeper insights, a deeper signature at the 6 and the 16 level, and over half have 2 or more intensities. What that means is on that particular trait, they're actually more intense than 90 to 98% of humanity. And in that, it's really hard to move some of those things. What we found is there are some aspects of the wiring that's easily coachable and some things that are a little bit more stubborn. Generally speaking, the stubbornness or the difficulties come into understanding what the intensities mean and where are they more intense, less likely to adapt easily, more likely to repeat these behaviors. So path 4 and the path 6, this is one of the key components. Then when you go into the LQ360 and you're able to demonstrate how they're being experienced within the organization through that 360, and then when we partner all 3 layers together, we join those layers together, now we have incredible behavioral insights, we have root cause, and we know exactly what to do about it, again, from a support, from a training, from a coaching perspective, all across the board. All right. Well, we really want to do this from a positive. It's not really just from a corrective action. We really want to make sure that people are set up for success. And one of the things that I say all the time is lead where you're strong and team where you struggle. So maybe you're good at one set of tasks. You're wired for details. So you're going to pick up the details. But if it's moving fast or if it's change or if it's some of those other components, now, is there someone else on the team that can pick that up? So this is where we get into this teaming for success component or high performance teams, one of the other workshops that we have. And we do that based on wiring and based on role fit, task analysis, and a lot of those components. So where you're strong, lead out in that particular aspect. But where you're struggle or where the situation needs something different from you, then really this is where we encourage you to either lift up another teammate and let them support you, put a system around it, or maybe reach out for coaching. As we go, 3 questions that we would love for you to start asking, even if you don't come to certification with this. Number 1, are you seeing a pattern in a behavior? That pattern recognition is one of the key pieces. Again, we're going to help you see that better, but we'd love for you to start asking these questions. What is driving it? What is subsurface? So again, what pattern, surface, what's driving it, subsurface. And then is there something I can do as a team member or as a leader to adapt my approach to make sure that we're making the best possible interactions? So again, so that we can make the best business component. Well, when you come to certification, we want to make sure that after the first 2 days, now the 3rd day is much more so around facilitating workshops that we do and or the coaching program that we have. If you want to coach internally or if you want to be an external coach, that's a different component. But really after the first 2 days of certification, we want to make sure that you can set an employee up for success. So looking at how do we hire and onboard in an effective way, set them up for success. If they are good at a job, or maybe they've just done the job, so their resume says they're going to be good at this, but they're really not wired at it. How do we make sure we take a fresh look and a fresh approach at does wiring impact engagement, and can we all the way back, can we make sure, again, to quote Jim Collins from 25 years ago, put the right people in the right seats on the bus? We know how to do that from a wiring standpoint and set them up for success. Number 2, if you have a disengaged employee, one of the things that we want to do is to look and say, okay, is this disengaged employee not connecting with their teammates, not connecting with their leader, or not connecting with their role, with the job, and the tasks that they're doing on a consistent basis? And sometimes the root cause of that disengagement is wiring between themselves and the people around them, or wiring to the job. And as much as possible, we're going to look at how do we solve some of that disengagement. Is it modality and management style, or is it simply they're in the wrong seat? And if we move them, we could potentially re-engage a great player back to where they were engaged before. And then the third component is when you think about moving a particular player into a new role, what made them a success, you're thinking, okay, they were a success, let me promote them. So succession planning is one of those key components, and really career management, career tracking, professional development. We look at how they're wired. We look at the needs of the role, either next level or what they're coming into, and we're able to evaluate them from a wiring, from a behavioral standpoint, to see where are they custom fit for that particular component, and where are the gaps or the struggles going to be. So again, as you set this up, after those 2 days, first 2 days on the practitioner side, really help you set up people for success right off the bat, turn around a disengaged employee, or give you some valuable tools and resources to help evaluate succession plan. Is this person great here? Will they still be great there? Because we certainly don't want to lose that genius exactly where they're at. All right, so let me pull this off of here. So again, the 3 days that we do, we are in a room very similar to this, what you see on your screen. And generally speaking, it's going to be a smaller group, 5 to 10 people at a time. It's immersive, it's interactive. We really go through practical application in real life scenarios. And again, I'm looking at the individual, I'm looking at the leader, and I'm looking at the team to be able to do the entirety of this particular value chain, if you will. So when we start to look at how do we serve and set people up for success, there are many people that are going to lead out and just sort of naturally, and this is what we do, when we're put in a situation, we lead the best way we know how. And in that contribution, again, if it's working, great. You happen to land in a spot where your natural behavior aligns with the organization and with what the role needs. If not, this is really where we come in, is to start to sort of detangle some of that and be able to understand, is the root. We understand the surface. What's the subsurface? And how do we get great from a people standpoint to make sure that we can elevate leaders and ultimately elevate organizations? Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this particular video and to join this webinar. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cut the recording, and then we're going to open it up to some questions and answers. So again, thank you so much for watching this video if you're watching it after the live recording. But again, if you can join us for these certification sessions, we guarantee you that we will change how you see people, how you see behavior, and we will elevate you to such a status within your organization, not so that you can have status, but really so that you can have impact in what you do. Thank you so much.